for silver linings in 2020, and they are definitely out there. Meeting Adair Solomon, the STEAM teacher at Cedar Point Elementary, absolutely was one of those silver linings. In fact, I felt like it was a golden moment. I met her through Lee Darter, the art teacher, and Lee introduced me, but then this is what Lee had to say. She always looks for teachers to collaborate with, and she was thrilled when Adair, the STEAM teacher, was willing to do so. And this is what Lee has to say that just really touched my heart. She has taken on this title with her amazing talent and positive can-do attitude. I had the privilege of working on several STEAM projects with Adair. She is a great believer in the importance of the A in STEAM. Adair is always looking for new and exciting ways to create and teach her lessons. It is an honor to be able to work with such a gifted educator. Welcome to Class Acts, Real Educators, Real Leaders, Real Talk. Meet today's special guest, Adair Solomon. Welcome and thank you so much for taking time out for this interview today.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me. I find it kind of comical that they just decided to mow the lawn next door, so I hope that doesn't interfere. It just started.
I am giggling because that is always the case when I'm doing a video. There's always something going on, and I usually am so engrossed that it doesn't even bother me, so no worries.
Okay.
I'm super excited though, because when I met you, and we don't really know each other, which a lot of times I know who I'm interviewing, and you are one of the exceptions to that. I just was instantly impressed. Like, I was like, I am in the presence of greatness here. And so let's just start right from the beginning. Tell us where you teach and how you became a teacher.
So right now I teach at Cedar Point Elementary School in Bristow, Virginia. It's about 35 minutes outside Washington, D.C. And as far as teaching goes, I was late to the party. I had a career before I became a teacher. However, when my kids were in elementary school, there was no art program funding. And I wasn't working at the time. And I may have been working part-time, but I worked with a center called the Greater Reston Art Center in Reston, Virginia, and became a docent. And we actually would bring portfolios to local schools and focus on one artist, and then the students would create something in the likeness of that artist's work. It was fulfilling, and for the first time in my life, I fell in love with what I was doing. I've had many jobs, had fun at all of them, but this just became a passion of mine. So I went back and got a master's and began teaching, and I've been doing that for about 17 years now.
What did you want to do when you were like growing up? Was teaching one of your choices?
Oh, no. It's funny, I just had this thought when I was a little girl, a long time ago. I had it cut out of a flight attendant. In those days they called them stewardesses. And that's what I wanted to be.
Yeah, totally with you there.
Yeah. And then went to college, got a degree in political science and English. I was going to save the world. I wanted to work for the Organization of American States in DC. And instead, I fell in love with someone, Todd, my husband, who went to the Naval Academy, and then he served in the military. So we started moving all around, and I did a lot of different things. I managed backstage at major music pavilions, and I also wrote scripts for videos. So I was like a jack of all trades.
Wow. Yeah. How did you get to become the STEAM teacher?
This part's cool. I'm actually a big history buff, and I was teaching fourth grade at the time. This was about 4.5 years ago. I took my students to a Virginia Tech satellite campus in Falls Church, Virginia, and they have a lab called the Think of It Lab. they collaborated with Qualcomm from San Diego, who had developed this lab. And the purpose of the lab was truly to introduce middle school students and high schoolers to careers in technology. But we were able to get plussed on because my principal had a connection, and I took fourth graders there to this very high level field trip. It was above their heads. And they were there for about 4 hours, and it was magical. I saw things happen. It was a tough field trip. They were required to learn about engineering and then learn circuitry and then coding, C++ code, the kind that's in our cell phones. It wasn't easy stuff. And then apply that code to servo motors and light emitting diodes, and then use trash, recyclables, craft items, lots of fun things to build anything they wanted. But the challenge was it had to have a moving element to it. So I watched my students, 9, 10-year-olds, work collaboratively and fail miserably, some of them, but not freak out about it. They were truly using the engineering design process and working through their problems. And at the end, almost everybody had a working masterpiece that they presented to the rest of the class. And when we left, the kids, after 4 hours of complete engagement, were screaming, "This is the best field trip ever. Oh, I loved it. It's the best field trip ever." And I was crushed because that's not what we were doing in our school. And we were just cramming the objectives into them and trying to do well on the testing. And I know that every teacher struggles with wanting to create this incredibly rich learning environment for their students, but we also have those tiers, those levels that we get judged on with the testing. And I was so upset because trying to combine them both, I knew it could happen, but I needed support in order to make it happen. And that's when I went to my principal and I said, "Listen, this is amazing. We have to do it, and we have to do it and offer it to all the students in our county," because it was incredible, the learning that went on there. And he jumped on board. It took us a long time to get the county to get on board, but they did. And now we do field trips for fourth graders. And they ask us if we do birthday parties. They love this field trip, even though it is taking their level of learning so high.
That is amazing. And you sent me an email that had a video attached, which is incredible. And I hope that you will let us share that with others. We would love to put it on our education Facebook page, because it's fantastic. You can't help but watch it and want to take your class and want to do what the students are doing. How did you get the A incorporated into this STEAM program? I know lots of times big companies just will stick with STEM because that was the original acronym, and you know, sometimes there's not a lot of respect for the A in STEAM. Like I actually got that from Tim Needles, and he's so right. So how did you guys make that happen?
Well, we called it that, and we're not letting go, regardless of what anyone says. We firmly believe that the A in STEAM, the art element, has always been there. Yeah. If you look at any kind of technology, any kind of science or engineering, a bridge, for instance, there's art. If you look at an app, an artist helped create that. It's so important, and I find it sad that art is sometimes, it's a misconception that it's just plain frivolous fun. It's so much more. It's open-minded thinking, and that's what we need in STEM, especially with the future.
Love, love, love that. How do you, so, I mean, clearly the field trip generates excitement, but how on a daily basis do you generate excitement for your students with the math and the science part of your program?
So here's how it works. We do the field trips every other week, and in the off weeks, I work with students from kindergarten through 5th grade at Cedar Point Elementary. And we don't incorporate it into, in Virginia, we call them encores, music, PE. Those are encores. The kids go to them on a weekly basis. Yeah. The lab is not incorporated into that. Instead, I work with the teams of teachers. We collaborate and we create project-based learning experiences for the kids in the lab. So we'll take an objective, say the 3rd grade is studying ancient Greece. By the time they get into the lab, we're creating aqueducts. And they incorporate the engineering design process into that, a lot of math and measuring. And then, of course, we test them. But the teachers have done a lot within their own classrooms before they come to the lab.
That is outstanding. And I love the collaboration part of that. How are you making it work in a virtual situation? Are you guys 100% virtual right now?
Sadly, we are. We are. We're not doing it, unfortunately. At this point, we've been in school for 3 weeks, and I'm more of a support to the teachers right now. There was a lot of technology that needed to be learned, and we've been working on that, and now we're just helping the students. And that is the most important thing right now. But we're working on some projects, and if it continues, then we'll start rolling those out, probably in late October.
I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head, because my next question was going to be, how do you keep up with the changes? And I will let you answer that. Part of it is a little bit of a learning curve within teaching, because you have to learn how to teach virtually and then expand on it from there. But what are some other ways that you guys are keeping up with changes?
We actually did this summer. Qualcomm funded a camp for middle school girls, and it had been a long time since I had worked with middle schoolers, and it was a wearable technology camp, and we did the entire thing virtually. They were underserved girls. We were able to secure laptops that they got to keep. We delivered those via the Boy Scouts to their homes, and then huge boxes of craft items. And every day we met. The camp, we planned on having it be a full day camp, but when COVID hit, we took it down to smaller groups, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. And by the end of the week, the girls used technology, Flipgrid, to present their masterpieces after they learned the circuitry and everything that went with it. And it was a blast. We invited administrators throughout the county to join us, and they did. And it was so much fun. So I feel that they got almost as much as they would have. The big piece missing when we're teaching virtually is collaboration at this level. In the high school level, virtually it can happen, but in the elementary level, collaboration is key, and that's our biggest struggle.
What advice could you give other educators who might want to incorporate STEAM into their classroom? And you can speak both classroom when you're in the school and virtually.
So when you're in the school, I would say keep pushing and understand that you can cross the curriculum. You don't have to teach English, math, science. Everything should integrate. And far richer learning goes on when a teacher does that, when they're not afraid to cross the line and incorporate language arts into science. And it's easy to do. And then adding the whole engineering element, kids need that. They can find the information anywhere. What we need to develop are thinkers, critical thinkers who aren't afraid of failure. And it's amazing what these young minds, and I think it's because they're not bogged down, they are so creative and come up with absolutely amazing ideas. One of the things we do in the lab is to solve problems. And they come up with, a third grader wanted to invent an app that you could actually put some kind of device into a glass of water. And this was for Flint, Michigan, when that was going on.
Yes.
And it would send data to your phone to let you know if the water was safe to drink. She was 8 years old. Wow. And she drew it. We only get to the prototypes, but it was really cool. And virtually, I think that it's harder. It's harder to integrate the whole STEAM element. And I'm still trying to figure that out. We did a few in the spring, but they were very simple.
Yeah, I have a feeling if somebody's going to figure it out, Adair, you're going to lead that charge. What are your go-to resources? Like how do you look for new things, and where do you go when you're looking for information, advice, new ideas?
The internet. A lot of it is the internet. Your catalogs. I love looking through the catalogs, and there are also some STEAM teachers who teach within my county. They run an Encore program. It's not like the program I do, but whenever we have an idea, we share it. I think it's really important to share your ideas. I think teachers are exceptional at that, and we borrow each other's ideas.
I completely agree on teachers being exceptional at that. And honestly, I've worked at Nasco this is going into my 17th year. And that's something that I have learned, is that teachers have ideas and not only want to share them, but also enjoy them to be shared out. Mm-hmm. What would you say is your biggest challenge as a teacher?
Virtually or in general?
In general. But I'll take virtually too, that's relevant.
I think the biggest challenge is basically to not give up, because to try to get the buy-in at my school from the classroom teachers was very difficult, because they felt as though the lab was just a place to go have fun, a reward for the kids if they did well. It was difficult to get them to actually integrate it into their objectives. And we really did well last year, and I'm excited to get back into the classroom to continue that.
Oh, I know, that just is heartbreaking. I know for all of you, but I just, in learning about teachers and developing relationships with them, my heart breaks that you guys aren't there, because I know how much it means to the students as well. How many students are at your school?
We are low in numbers. That's why I was allowed to open the lab. Our school is right in the middle of a little neighborhood, and people don't move away because we have a great high school close by.
Right.
And so as the kids grow up, they of course graduate. And we had 2 rooms available in our school, and that's why I was able to open the lab. They were not being used. So right now our numbers, I think, are at about 570 or maybe a little more.
That's still a lot of kids. A lot of kids learning about STEAM, which is great. Were there any educators in your life that have influenced you, whether it was when you were young or college or even as a colleague?
Oh, okay, Kris. I was one of those students who kind of slipped through the cracks when I went to school. I don't remember. I remember one teacher when I was young who allowed us to put the parts of speech into a song. And that really appealed to me.
Fun.
But the first teacher that truly had an effect on me wasn't until college. And I remember this professor, it was the first time a teacher paid me a compliment that I remembered. And
Oh, nice.
he said that I was a good writer. And it meant the world to me. And most of the educators that have an effect on me, I've actually met as an adult.
Yeah.
There are some amazing ones out there.
That's certainly not rare. But I do love that regardless of who you're talking to, almost everybody remembers at least one teacher at some point in their life, which just shows the impact that you have on students. Tell me something funny that has happened in your class. I always like a funny story.
Okay, the first thing that comes to mind, and this was even before I was in STEAM, I can't believe I'm coming up with this one because it's so silly. I don't like spiders. And literally, we would get these millipedes coming through every once in a while. And even more than not liking them, I don't like to step on them because they make that crunchy noise. So the kids knew if they saw something, we would take a big dictionary, quickly wrap paper towels around it, and just drop it on the poor thing. But they knew to freeze, not say a word to me. Someone would go get a dictionary, wrap it, and bam.
That is excellent.
I love, the only thing I do miss about not having a classroom teacher is the community that would be developed, the family that we would create together throughout the year.
Tell me about a time where you felt like you really did have an impact on a student's life.
Did not?
No, that you did.
Oh, that I did.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm pretty
sure you impact every student. So you might not think that there's no impact, but there is. But tell me about a time where you saw the impact.
Okay, I know this one is with STEAM. And the beauty I saw in my class when I took them on the field trip, there were two boys who really struggled even to write a sentence, but in the lab together, they built a moving elevator. It actually worked. It was the model of an elevator. And then there were students who were truly gifted and in the gifted program who struggled and just couldn't get it because they couldn't just let it go and be creative. There was a boy who came on a field trip a year and a half ago, and he didn't speak. He didn't seem to get the beginning of the field trip, where we present engineering and engineers solve problems. But then he got into the lab with the hands-on, and that boy built a car. A moving, with the circuitry and Arduino board. It's just a little prototype, but when 1 hour with a partner, he built a car, and I'll never forget when he presented it, he spoke.
Oh.
And yeah, it was just beautiful, and the excitement. That's right, he was one of the kids, sometimes the kids come on the field trip in the beginning, like, yeah, okay. And whenever I see one of those, they're like my pet project. And it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And I do think it had an impact because he succeeded at something.
Absolutely. And I loved that you sort of shared, I want to say pendulum of, kids that struggle with the book learning, and then the super smart kids. But that's sort of where creativity meets, is that, if you can get kids to be creative, it not only helps somebody that's struggling, but it also helps that student who has major trouble to think outside the box to do just that. And they become better thinkers, even though the book part of it's already easy for them. So, and I love that you mentioned hands-on. I am, definitely old school Nasco where I like the stuff, you know, I like the, you know, the brushes and the clay and the stuff, and the science part, the making part of it. And so the fact that you take the technology and the engineering and then you physically do something with it, I love that. What else am I missing here? I'm jumping all over the place because you've got so many good stuff. Do you do any kind of like clubs or extracurricular activities within the school?
We, robotics, Lego robotics after
Oh,
school.
sure.
And that is the only club. There's a program in Virginia called Virginia Star, and we refurbish computers, laptops. And we tried getting that going, but now it's on hold. And it's a great little program that helps, I feel, students with reading comprehension, because you follow directions to take a clean laptop that was going to be thrown away, and you install Windows and Office on it, and then give it to someone in need. So we do that. And hopefully this year we're going to try the Invention Convention.
Oh, I love it.
Get some kids together and try that.
That is very cool. You mentioned a partner, Qualcomm. Mm-hmm. That is a business. Did they ask to partner with you? Did you have to ask them? Is that something other teachers could do? Do you think it's worth a teacher going to a business that clearly is STEAM related and saying, hey, can you partner with us?
Well, with Qualcomm, they're the reason we exist, because they were collaborating with Virginia Tech, and they developed the Think a Bit Lab, which is Qualcomm's. So Qualcomm, our lab is inspired by Qualcomm, but we are our own entity. However, Qualcomm loves the idea of camps, the summer camps. And so they're big into funding those. I think right now there are 19 schools across the country, a couple of universities as well, that have used Qualcomm funding for a camp or a lab. I don't think they do the labs anymore, but they're definitely into the camps. So sure, people could.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, businesses want students to graduate with those STEAM, you know, principles and, you know, all the right information and clearly to go on to college for that as well. But some of them could enter the field ready to go. And so I love that you are at an elementary, because it definitely starts there. And so to introduce it at a high school level, you know, you've already prepared them for lots of stuff. So I think that's fantastic. This section of the interview is actually my favorite. And James Lipton, I don't know if you remember him. He actually just recently passed away. I think he might have been pre-2020, but I wouldn't doubt if it was 2020. And anyways, he was from inside the actor's studio, and he always did this really quick list of questions with his guests, and they were just fun. Mine are a little bit more family friendly than his are, but it's just fun to do sort of a rapid fire kind of question answer thing. So let's conclude with that. Are you ready?
I think. Sure.
So just the first thing that comes off your head. So here we go. What's your favorite word?
Periwinkle.
Say that one again.
Periwinkle. It's a color.
That is excellent. What's your least favorite word?
Ooh, anti-disestablishmentarianism.
That
I learned it in 8th grade.
I was going to say, you are a writer. What is your biggest saving grace?
Ooh, my family.
Nice. What sound drives you crazy in the classroom?
Oh, squeezing those plastic water bottles over and over and over again.
Yep. What drives you crazy in the Zoom classroom?
not being able to see what they're working on.
Yeah. What's the one thing every teacher needs to teach in 2020?
Patience.
What profession would you try if you couldn't teach anymore?
I would make cheese.
We're from Wisconsin, you know.
I would be a cheesemonger.
That is, do you have a favorite kind of cheese?
The stinkier, the better. I will eat any kind of cheese. I
So
love
you're so definitely a blue cheese eater?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes, that was a sidebar, everybody, but when you say cheese in Wisconsin, you have to talk a little bit about cheese. Best gift ever from a student?
Oh, I still have it. A little boy made a box, and he put 3 mason jars in it with 3 little fake succulents. Before succulents were a thing. But he made the box all by himself. Sweet.
Very cool. What is the best way to help a teacher?
Understand that he or she is doing his or her best.
Absolutely. And your favorite thing about teaching?
The students, the kids. Every day's a new day.
I know, you make me want to do science, and that's not my strong point, but oh my gosh, I would want to be in your class. Adair, this has been absolutely delightful, and I couldn't agree with Lee anymore about your positive attitude. It has been a pleasure to get to know you. There's no doubt that you engage students and that you are absolutely preparing them for what's going to come next in their life and for life in general. So I can't thank you enough for that. You clearly are a class act. If you have any questions for Adair or for about Class Act's interview, please contact me. I am Kris Bakke. I'm the Customer Engagement Manager at Nasco, and I just thank you all for joining in. And again, Adair, thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.